Hello, Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Eisha and I am the community manager at NIC Islamabad. We are doing another one of our talks in the series called Failure Stories, and we are very, very fortunate to have Marek join us today. Marek is originally from Poland, and he is the executive, he's an entrepreneur and an executive focused on online businesses in frontier and emerging markets. He has also co-founded Jamia Travel, Africa's biggest hotel booking portal listed on the New York Stock Exchange. But that's not all. A very interesting part of Marek's profile is that he also co-founded Africa's first Amazon, for which he landed on Interpol's most wanted list, which is something that's been of interest to a lot of people once we posted about this talk online. So he's going to speak to us more about that also. He has also been chosen as one of the 10 most important people in tech by IT News Africa magazine, and is the lead mentor at Google's Launchpad and World Bank's Excel Africa program. His book called Chasing Black Unicorns, How Building the Amazon of Africa Put Me on Interpol's Most Wanted List is also out, and Marek will be talking to us a bit about that also. Thank you very much, Marek, for joining us. Guys, just to tell you how the session is going to go today, Marek has prepared a small presentation for us. So we're going to start that, and then we're going to be taking your questions as the presentation goes, but Marek will answer them towards the end of his presentation. So please use the chat box, both in our Zoom meeting room, as well as the comment section on Facebook. We will be moderating this, and we will be keeping an eye on the questions. However, we will be answering the questions towards the end of the session. Thank you very much. Over to you, Marek. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I just want to make sure I'm heard clearly. If someone can confirm, maybe Eisha, can you hear me? Just give me a thumbs up or anything, so I know you guys can hear me.
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
Cool.
Yes.
I'm gonna try to do the presentation much faster than I usually do, because I have to tell you, it's super weird to talk to a laptop for 45 minutes without even getting any sort of feedback. Usually I would do it talking to someone in a classroom or a bigger room, you know what I mean. So I'm going to try to jump from topic to topic a little bit faster, and hopefully that will initiate some rounds of questions, and this will be more interactive and I hope more fun for everyone. And I know that the context of this presentation is failure stories. So I'm actually going to be focusing on all the failures that I went through that actually turned out to be important turning points in my life. So without further ado, let's just jump in. I think it's worth mentioning that as a person, what really shaped my personality is that until I was 16, until I was 17 really, I was this super chubby little boy that was really bullied by everyone in school. I was afraid to speak to girls and stuff like this. And that internal personality that is insecure and really wants to prove everyone around that I can do something and I will achieve something turned out to be extremely powerful for me in the rest of my life. What I've also realized is that if you allow this internal insecure boy to take over, it can actually destroy you as well. So it has become a double-edged sword and a very powerful force later in life when I had a lot of problems that I had to deal with. So that is very important for me, that particular part of my life, because I do see how this then helped me just deal with problems and failures. And I will tell you about them in a second. I think the second important part of my life is that I obviously wanted to get out of my small city that I lived in. I lived in a very, very classic old school family. My father was a soldier. My mother was a teacher. I was never hungry. They always had enough money, for me to eat and have proper education, but that was it. And I was living in this very, very small city of less than 100,000 people, and I really wanted to get out. I got into a university because I was very good at maths and physics, but I realized that I'm still not free because I don't have the money. And those were the early 2000s. Those were the days where economy was booming globally, and especially in Poland as well. And those financial companies, just like the ones you probably could see in Wolf of Wall Street, were recruiting all those young and hungry guys for success to sell their investment products. And I really got myself into this company totally by accident. When I joined them, there was only 5 of us in the office, and after 3 years, there was 3,000 of us. And if you've watched this movie, it was almost like this in this company, maybe without the sex on the plane with stewardess, and the products we were selling were legit stock options or mortgages, not fake like it happened with Wolf of Wall Street. But the whole building atmosphere, almost cult-like corporate culture, and that love for money was something that really controlled me and brainwashed me. And I have jumped from one extreme to another, being this bullied kid, to guy that has makes more money in a month than my parents together would make in a year. And I thought I can do anything and I'm the king of the world. That totally broke me, into the other way. And at some point after 2-3 years, I faced something that now you call a burnout, meaning I wasn't able to get out of my bed. I would spend a couple hours under the hot shower, not wanting to do anything, and I didn't know what's happening to me. I just didn't want to work. And now I know is that this is called a burnout. Basically, what it meant for me is that I had very low life goals set up for myself because I didn't know what you can really achieve. And thanks to working in this financial company, I was basically able to buy everything that I ever wanted to have. So subconsciously, my mind became lazy because I didn't know what else that I want to have. And that's what you really call burnout in many cases. And I very fast lost all my money because the year 2008 came. And you probably remember what happened in 2008. It was a big financial crash, started in the US and then hit whole Europe. And the company basically went bankrupt. And it's very easy to lose all your money because once you stop working, you stop selling, you stop making any money, but you're still used to the expensive lifestyle, having luxury cars and apartments and going on a private yacht trip. So I quickly lost all my money, and I used to have plus 1 million. That's where I made my first million. But then I quickly ended up with $1 million of debt. And I almost went totally bankrupt, and I ended up as a homeless person. If it wasn't for the fact that I was watching, I think, a CNN article, like a news piece or reportage, or whatever you're gonna call it, and they were reporting on that booming scene of Silicon Valley, and they did actually a scene like this when they showed these 2 hipsters sitting in some Starbucks somewhere in San Francisco in California, drinking some fancy coffee, sitting almost barefoot with some sweaters. They don't look like businessmen. They write some piece of codes on a laptop and they're making millions. And then I figured, if these guys can make millions, then so do I. And I don't know what the startup scene is. I don't know what Silicon Valley really means yet. But if those guys who were as geeky as I was in high school, they were able to make it, then so can I. And that was really my second wave of motivation to get out of really my huge debts. And to be honest, I was extremely lucky because I was working as a bartender back then just to pay anything to my debtors. And at the second part of the day, because I was working as a bartender in the evening, so during the workday 9 to 5, I got myself into a startup in Poland who, I was extremely lucky, got sold after a year to a bigger company. And because I was working almost for free as an intern, but in exchange for shares, the money from the exit of this company allowed me to pay those debts. So that's what really saved my life. Startups really saved my life, that I almost screwed with the almost like a Wolf of Wall Street lifestyle. And I figured, I think I just found out what I want to do for the rest of my life. Just to give you a quick comment, anecdote, this is actually a Polish advertisement. One of our startups that we have built was in the funeral business space, because I figured if every smart guy that knows how to code is now trying to build another Facebook or another MySpace or another YouTube, then maybe I will try to disrupt some old school sector that not too many young people want to enter. And this is how I found this opportunity of building technology company in the funeral business. because not too many young guys want to have anything to do with funeral business. It's just not cool business. And one of our marketing activities was that it was hard to promote on the internet what the funerals services really are about. So we came up with this service of you being able to plan your funeral while you're alive. And we would make this very viral advertisements about, just making a crazy funeral, because young people would appeal to that. And this went viral totally. We would have all the newspapers in the country writing about us, and we would have 10,000 people per day signing up for our services. The problem was that those people were on average 25 years old. So they couldn't become our client in a way until they get old. So we ended up with this hundreds of thousands of clients that will only become our clients after a couple of decades. And obviously, as a startup, every startup gets killed because of cash flow. That was our challenge. And another interesting failure here was that that was year 2009, and I got accused by the Polish anti-competition or Polish competition office that I am breaking the law by promoting funeral services online while I am not a funeral service home. So imagine this: you have a website like Airbnb and Booking.com, and obviously when someone goes on Google and types in Hotel Islamabad or apartment for rent in Islamabad, you obviously want to promote your Booking.com website or your Airbnb type of website. And I was accused for breaking the law because I don't have a hotel, I don't have a apartment to rent, I just have a website. So that was 10 years ago, and I had to defend my case in court that although I don't have a funeral home, just like Booking.com doesn't have a hotel, I still have the right to promote myself on Google. So we were one of the first companies that really had to explain to the Polish government the difference between Booking.com and Accor hotel chains. That technology company that sells hotels doesn't need to have hotels. We actually were the first one that had to deal with it. Then my second part of the story was that's another failure, really. I was in this startup business for a couple years in Poland. It was year 2012. I had a couple of smaller successes, couple of failures. We were able to sell 2 more startups. 3 of them went bankrupt. I've realized at some point that I have hit the ceiling, because all my professional life, I've either been selling insurance products or stocks, or running the startups in Poland. I decided to drop out of university on my first year because I figured if Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg did that, then I have to do the same in order to be successful. And I never really worked for any international company. And that hit me into year 2012, because I realized that I will not ever be able to build an international successful company if I have never worked for one, or if I have never got any sort of basic expertise in this particular area. So I decided to take a step back and work for someone first, so I can get that necessary knowledge. And for my case was a company called Rocket Internet. In Europe, they're called the Amazon of Europe back then. If you want to be a successful online entrepreneur, you probably would like to work for a year for Apple or for Amazon or for Google. And in Europe, you want to work for a year for Rocket Internet, because they're the most successful online company in Europe. And I just simply wrote them a CV, sent them my CV and wrote them a motivational letter saying, I haven't graduated from Harvard. I've never worked for McKinsey or any other consulting companies or investment bank, because those are the people they prefer to hire. But I have some big field experience in Polish startups, and I want to work with you guys because I want to learn how to run fast international businesses. And I was extremely lucky, because back then they were planning to expand their operations into Africa. They were already successful in Europe. As I learned, they were already successful in Latin America and some parts of Asia. And they were gaining speed and raising a lot of money to enter sub-Saharan Africa. And I got an offer I could never refuse. They will hire me as employee number 1 for their online travel startup. I won't be paid too much, but if I deliver the results, if I make the startup survive and grow, after 3 years, I will earn my shares. And that was my story. And that's how I really joined Rocket Internet and opened Jovago, which then opened also in Pakistan. We can talk about this. Jovago then merged with another company of Rocket Internet called Jumia. And that's how in total, sorry, let me just quickly jump to another slide. And long story short, this has given me one of the most exciting adventures of my life, because I become this part of building essentially what ended up being a unicorn, and when going on the New York Stock Exchange. And that was one of the most valuable lessons of my life, and one of the most extremely positive adventures in my life. But you're probably going to ask about what happened with the Interpol. Let me quickly find the proper slide for this. This is a screenshot of Interpol that basically says that I'm a fugitive wanted for prosecution, and Interpol issues so-called red notice after me. So let me quickly tell you how Interpol works. So Interpol is this global institution that is supposed to help local police organizations from each local country cooperate with each other, which obviously is something we need in the world, because if someone is a criminal in Pakistan and moves to US and steals all the money, for example, you want the US police to also be able to chase him there, because otherwise people will just be changing countries and breaking the law all the time. The problem is that the organization has become so big. There's 150 membering countries. There are hundreds of thousands international criminals, because the world has become a local village. Interpol has the similar problem that Facebook or YouTube have with unwanted content. You probably have been there when someone has posted something on Facebook and they didn't have the right to, or they maybe posted a photo with you. You know that they don't have the right to, and they don't want to take it down. You know how long it takes to go after Facebook or YouTube and appeal with the HQ to take it down. And unfortunately, there's the same problem with Interpol, because any local police authority can issue an arrest warrant after anyone, and it automatically lands in this global system. And if the local police authority doesn't have the right to do that, and they don't want to take it down, the only way for you is to go to Interpol headquarters in France and appeal. And because they have tens of thousands of cases of appeals per month, it takes them up to 2 years to analyze your case. And during those 2 years, you're not able to travel, you're not able to do business really, your reputation is being damaged, you risk being extradited. So you really are going through some tough times. And unfortunately, this mechanism is now being abused by political opponents as well as business opponents. If you read the news yesterday, Iran has issued an arrest warrant after Donald Trump, which is funny because obviously they can't do anything to a president of the United States. But this shows you what they do to political opponents. Technically, if Trump was now a normal person, he would be put on the system. He wouldn't be travel anywhere. He would lose hundreds of thousands of dollars to fight this illegal arrest warrant. And that's exactly what business people also do in certain countries. If you have a businessman that has, I'm going to use a diplomatic language here, has influence on a certain police person, just an average police person that has access to the system, you can basically buy an arrest warrant. And that arrest warrant becomes globally immediately. And now you're gonna, if you want to fight this, it's gonna cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars on international lawyers to fight this case, and you're risking that for 2 years you won't be travel at all. And usually, what happens is then you get a phone call. That was just a slide about a godfather. What happens in a case like this, what also happened to me, you get a phone call from a godfather and you got an offer that you can't refuse. If you do what they want you to do, this whole arrest warrant will disappear in the matter of days. In my case, I was offered, give back the shares of the company, give back the control of the company, just leave the country, let the company go, leave that company in the country, give the company to the people I want you to give it to, and we will make this case disappear. Basically, it was a case for me to let go my company. And I was one of the few guys that decided to take this to court, and I actually risked it. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on lawyers, and it took me 2 years for almost 2 years, 18 months to be exact, I was not able to travel outside Poland. I would be stopped anywhere and extradited to Nigeria. But I'm now the first foreigner in the history of Nigerian justice system that took Nigerian police to court, proved that the arrest warrant was illegal, and won the case. And as well, Interpol has, decided that it was all illegal. But it cost me 2 years of time, hundreds of thousands of dollars of lawyers, and a lot of stress. And I won the company back. It was another company that I opened after Jumia. It was called Hotel Online, and it was building software for hospitality business, which was the part of the conflict. That's the company that someone wanted to steal from me. I can talk more about why it happened, why the conflict has escalated so much. The company has really lost a lot of its value, but I was able to defend my case. I got a lot of motivation to do it. And in the end, I wrote a book about it, which you probably, this is the Polish cover. The English book is called Chasing Black Unicorns, where everything is written about my whole adventure in Africa, what happened in those couple years before I moved to Nigeria and then Kenya and South Africa. And then really last couple chapters are all about this fight for justice with the corruption in police and with those shady businessmen, ruthless businessmen that wanted to steal the company from me, including me going to meetings and having all that microphones below my shirt to record the evidence of someone really blackmailing me. And this is why I really wrote this book, to share my story, because the lesson here is that if you are running businesses in frontier markets, so in economies and in markets where the democracy is not there yet, the legal system is not there yet, you can't really trust the police, and there's a lot of corruption. It's typical for every economy at an early stage. It was the same in Poland in the 90s. You have to be aware that the potential success and reward of being successful is amazing, but you have to really calculate the risks. And what the biggest lesson for me was that basically bribing police was just another way of fighting with your business opponents. And I'm going to finish here because I've been already talking for 25 minutes. I've touched a couple of topics. I didn't elaborate on them for too long because I will happily do that. But based on the question that you guys are giving me, because maybe some parts of my story are more interested for you than the other. So Eisha, if you don't mind, I would love to give the voice back to you and read some questions.
Okay, super. So the first question that we have is that what similarities do you see in the Pakistan and Kenya online travel market?
So I was always comparing Pakistan to Nigeria, and demographically, those two countries seem to have a lot of similarities in terms of population, purchasing power, a huge potential in talent of young people, but at the same time, the purchasing power being very low. When you compare it to, for example, Western Europe, right? Both countries have a low purchasing power. In Nigeria, there's almost 200 million people, but only 2 million people make more than $900 per month. So you can't just sell them normal stuff. The price point has to be much, much lower. And I just figured that there's a lot of similarities, and whatever lessons we have learned after we've launched in Nigeria and Kenya, those lessons are much more relevant when we go to Pakistan than the lessons from Germany or the lessons from Poland even. And I also could notice that in Nigeria and in Kenya that Western startups are not really that successful because the market is so drastically different. But I could see a lot of startups from India, for example, or Indonesia entering South Africa, entering Kenya, and they were successful. And then after I'd done the research, I was like, because both economies are at such an early stage, the purchasing power problems are similar, internet connection in rural areas being a challenge. We figured we should try, and instead of going to United States and everyone's trying to conquer the United States, we figured that one of the countries we will open back in the Javago days was to launch Pakistan after Nigeria.
Great. Okay. Are OTAs or channel managers the future? Talha Wasim would want to know.
So I left online travel business in 2016. So my knowledge is a little bit outdated. I believe that OTA in the form they operate now are not the future. The balance of the power is imbalanced. You have two OTAs, two big groups, Booking.com and Expedia, controlling 80% of the online booking space in the world. They were able to take advantage of hotels that didn't really know how to utilize technology and how to protect themselves. So you essentially have this duopoly that is taking advantage of the market. And I don't think this is sustainable. And you could see a lot of bottom initiatives to fight this. Just like, taxi drivers were fighting Uber. Also, hotels are trying to fight OTAs in a more civilized way. And I believe that something has to change. I think that hotels will build internal technical skills, and they will be able to build more direct relationships with the clients. There'll still be a platform needed, but not necessarily a platform that defines a separate brand and charges 20% every time the client is booking the same hotel over and over again. The current model is not sustainable. That's how I look at it.
Great. Okay. Another question is, you talked about burnouts in the beginning. How can I manage to reduce the risk of my team burning out during this pandemic?
Yeah, that's a challenging thing, right? Because this pandemic is like something out of this world. We never faced anything like that. So let's just approach this problem from two problems: burnout in general and burnout during pandemic. I think burnout in general is comes out of this this misalignment inside your brain and inside your body, that whatever you're doing is not helping you realize your internal goals. And sometimes you're not even aware of your internal goals. So short-term approach to fixing a burnout would be to go on a vacation. But if you don't fix that misalignment between what you're doing and the goals you want to have in your life, what you really want to do in life, then this will come back very soon. And as soon as your goals, external and internal, are aligned, you don't have to go on vacation because you're driven every day. However, I mean, burnout during COVID, my question is it burnout related to the fact that you're just afraid something's going to happen? This is the first crisis in your life and you don't know what's going to happen. You're just freaking out? Because many people I talk to, I realize that this is their first crisis ever. And I've already went through crisis of 2008, and it also seemed like it's the end of the world. If you're freaking out, it just means that this is the first crisis in your life and there's going to be more. And this is not the end of the world. This crisis has been really created by people. There were no bombs, no highways were, blown out. It's just the government telling us to stop working and stop adding value. And I do believe that as fast as we stop doing this, at some point the climate in the nation will be that, okay, now is the time we're building back, and there will be a lot of excitement of rebuilding. And because the problem that we're facing now doesn't have an infrastructural nature, it will be much easier to rebuild only our psychology, not also highways and physical stuff. So I just believe that this is a matter of time. And when you look at capital markets, I mean, the markets were asking for a big correction anyway, and it would happen anyway. So I guess the first thing is to make everyone realize that this is temporary, and this is not the first. If this is the first crisis in their life, it's definitely not the last one. If the burnout has a nature of freaking out, but if someone is demotivated because the company is literally going bankrupt, and you already have debt collectors knocking at your door, then anything I've said now will not help you, because this is a totally different problem. And that I really don't know how to help you don't know what to say without getting more details. But as someone that has been through debt collectors literally appearing at your door unannounced to intimidate you, I can say that you can go through it, because they care about your success as much as you. Because if you now kill yourself or run away, go bankrupt, you're not going to give them back the money. So communication with your debtors, communication with your business partners, supporting each other, trying to renegotiate your business terms. That's the best time to do it now, because whoever, if you owe money as a company, if you have cash flow issues, whoever you owe money to, they're as much interested in you surviving as you do. Because when you're a small person and you have a debt in a bank, you have the problem. But when you're a bigger company and you have a debt at the bank, it's the bank problem. That's usually that's how the common knowledge goes.
Okay, Bilal Ahmed would want to know, when the Interpol accused you, what gave you the confidence to appeal to them?
So yeah, the Interpol didn't really accuse me. They just published the Nigerian arrest warrant. And the funny thing was that I got access to this arrest warrant, and it basically said that I stole $170,000, and I took the money physically, and I ran out of the country. And this was very funny for me because imagine going to the police and you tell that some random person stole your $180,000, and the policeman doesn't even ask you if you ever had the money. The policeman doesn't ever ask you for any proof of any stealing. They just immediately issue the arrest warrant. So that was funny in the end. But to be honest, I went through this very important situation in my life because I was stopped at the airport. That's how I found out about the Interpol case. And I spent a night in jail in Poland. And the people at the airport from that immigration service, the police, they told me that they are now waiting for a flight to be arranged for me, and I will be sent to Nigeria. They didn't really know this technicalities of this red notice because for them it was something new. So I couldn't speak to my lawyer yet. So I didn't know what rights I really have. So I basically spent the night in jail thinking I'm going to Nigeria. And I know what would happen there. The plan for those guys was to get me to Nigeria, put me into jail, and I'm not that tough. I would probably sign any paper they would give me to sign in that jail. So I knew what's going to happen. I kind of thought that my life is about to end. Not that I'm going to get killed, but my life the way I know it, with my business being stolen and so on. So I went through 4 stages of grievances in one night, just like when you lose someone. I also lost my father a couple years earlier, so I knew what the grievance is all about. And I could see that similarity in that night in jail. First, I couldn't believe. I was like numbed for an hour. Then I entered this rage stage when I was promising to myself that once I get out of it, I will absolutely, fuck up, sorry for my French, everyone that has done this to me. The revenge will drive me till I die. That's that rage stage. Then the third stage you enter is that stage, oh my God, this is over. Your life is over. And that's the stage when you start crying, you're afraid, you have panic attacks. I was like running around in circles. I was trying to meditate. I was praying. I was doing push-ups. Any way to control myself. And as soon as I let these emotions go and I got physically tired, I entered this stage of peace. And I really played in my head every possible scenario. What is the best thing that can happen to me? And what is the worst thing that can happen to me? And I didn't sleep at all that night. And I was playing the scenarios all over again for a couple hours in the cell. And it got to a stage when I was ready for everything. I wouldn't be surprised by anything that happens the next day, because I've played every possible scenario I could think of in my head, including how to get out of this and how to defend myself and how to protect my company. And that's what really gave me force and motivation to fight those 2 years to come. And that's when I decided, okay, if I ever write a book about my business adventures in Africa, my book just became much more interesting because of this. And the thought even in my head that after this is over, I will be able to put everything into paper and share my story, that was a powerful motivation for me as well.
Okay, Ahmed Khan wants to know, talking about Interpol, how did it affect your business and what were the steps you took to overcome these hurdles? When the Interpol started sort of chasing, did that affect your business?
Yes, so it affected the business very badly, which was the whole point, because when I got out of cell, my lawyer came. I got this extremely positive news that I won't be extradited right now. My passport was taken, and I was detained in Poland, but I was able to live. I had access to the internet. I could work. I could start preparing defense. I didn't know what that's going to be back then, but then I got the phone call from those people from Nigeria giving me an offer. The initial offer was $250,000. Pay us the money, we'll let it go. So I was able to either pay them the money or face my company being basically taken. And at that stage, it was a startup still. We were running this company for a year and a half. And to be honest, if I paid the money and kept the company was able to be worth much, much more. And I guess that wasn't the best business decision, because the business decision would be to just pay them and forget about everything. But I decided to fight this. Okay, so I got this offer. Then I got a phone call from a journalist from Nigeria saying that they got a tip that I am arrested and I'm accused of fraud. So I already knew what happened. Whoever did this to me immediately sent these messages to journalists from Nigeria to damage my image, to even make this hit harder. So on the image side, it was extremely painful, because immediately all the business partners of the company have found out about this, and a lot of those business partners left us. A couple of employees have left, and I don't blame them for that, because they were afraid that the company will be shut down and they have all families to take care of and so on. And my personal image was also very damaged, because remember, I was this white guy doing business in Nigeria. And I think now more than ever, it's very visible in the world that the racism issues are still very alive. And there were a lot of people that didn't like me just because I'm this white guy coming from Europe, being privileged and running business in Nigeria. I don't want to enter the discussion whether this is fair or not, but they had reasons not to like me because of the past. And when these accusations have become public, a lot of people that didn't like me for reasons not related to it, they were super happy. Oh, this guy is actually a fraud. I'm very happy that I learned about this, because now I can add some tangible accusations to my non-tangible, feelings of not liking this guy. So my image got really tarnished, and it's still damaged till today, because it took me, like I told you, almost 2 years to fight this. And the case has become very complicated, and people's attention span is just a couple of minutes or a couple of days. So when everyone said, oh, this guy is a fraud, then a couple months have passed and all the facts have come to the surface, then the public attention says, okay, this is boring now. We're already now busy with some other drama. So that is very effective to damage someone's reputation. And the question was also how to fight this. Well, essentially, I had to hire a very brave lawyer in Nigeria, who immediately took the Nigerian police to court. And then I had a lawyer in Poland, because I also had to defend the extradition request in Poland. And then I had to lawyer from States, because there was a lawyer that was specialized in Interpol abuse. And that person was leading the case of a formal appeal to the Interpol HQ to take it down, because we knew that Nigerian police doesn't want to work with HQ. They won't take me down because they bribe. So what first helped me is that federal court in Nigeria, after they saw all the evidence, they have ruled that the arrest warrant is indeed illegal because there's no evidence. So I won in Nigeria, which was a great statement that maybe there's a lot of corruption in Nigeria, especially in the police, but the justice system still works. And thanks to this ruling, and then the Polish court also ruled the same. So with Nigerian ruling and with Polish ruling, we submitted those documents to Interpol in France. The case was already in the press, and Interpol doesn't like bad PR, and they quickly made a decision. After those additional documents, and only a couple of weeks after it landed in the press. So they didn't react for 16 months, but after it landed in press, they quickly issued a statement saying, we are sorry, the red notice should never happen. We're taking it down. We're sending a message to all the countries that they should also take it down in their local databases. That's the answer.
Okay, so Fatma Riaz wants to know, What were the biggest challenges you faced setting up your business in Africa versus Pakistan? And then there is a supporting question from Talha, which is, what is the biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity in establishing a startup in a developing country?
Okay, so I wasn't that close to setting up the operations in Javago in Pakistan because we quickly hired a local team and they were doing most of the stuff. But besides, what are the biggest challenges you face setting in Africa versus Pakistan? I would say that in Pakistan, the adoption rate was much faster. I would say that Pakistan has a much bigger early adopters group, meaning it seemed that the users in Pakistan were more hungry of checking out new tools, new services. They just require less convincing to try something new. Because I remember when I was checking some KPIs, like how much money it costs to convince someone to use us for the first time, how many times we have to show our ad. It seemed that the market in Pakistan was much more responsive than Nigeria and Kenya. That's what I remember. But remember, that was like 2015, so don't remember everything. And then what's the biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity in establishing a startup in a developing country? Well, the biggest opportunity is basically the sheer size of the market and the fact that you can be player number one. And in many sectors of online system, the winner takes it all. I think when internet became popular in the 80s, in the 90s, everyone thought that internet will democratize the business. But we now know that this is the total opposite. Actually, internet makes it even more possible for monopolies or duopolies to become real in many sectors. So when you are first in the market, you have a much higher chance of being also the best and the biggest in the long term, because you will have that network effect that can work for you and so on and so on. So when you're opening early, just by being first, you will grow together with the market. But the challenge is the same actually as the opportunity, because your growth will be related to the market situation. And that's, for example, one of the big mistakes we have done in Nigeria. We assumed that democracy will win, capitalism will win all over the world. This is less obvious today as it was back then. And we assumed that Nigeria is booming, economy is booming. So just because everyone is just starting to buy more and use more online, we will grow as well. But it wasn't the case in Nigeria because the country entered crisis. Naira went, dollar went up, and all our services suddenly became twice much more expensive. So even if we are successful in our field of e-commerce, the total e-commerce market was shrinking. So what's the point of growing your share if your whole sector is shrinking? And that's a much bigger risk of what the market is, what's happening to the market affecting you. That's much bigger risk and opportunity when you compare emerging markets to more established markets like Western Europe or States.
Okay, Vikas wants to know, do you think for a global outreaching or social e-commerce based technology startup, Middle East like UAE or Pakistan can provide promising environment? What are the pros and cons?
I don't know much about your region, I have to tell you. Besides Pakistan, that was my only adventure. And I invested in a startup in Bhutan in that region. Do you think, I'm reading this question again, global outreaching, social e-commerce based technology? I mean, okay, what are pros and cons? I can't tell you. This is a very general question. Can it provide a promising environment? Yes, simply because you guys have access to the talent pool. I would assume you have way more cheaper talented people. Infrastructure challenges are already way more advanced. So definitely Pakistan and Middle East has a chance, just like Eastern Europe has, to become a tech hub for the rest of the world, as long as you guys know how to compete with China or Silicon Valley. So I guess that's all I can say. There's nothing that can slow you down. There's no reason why it couldn't work for you guys. There's no globally recognized obstacle that would say that doesn't matter how much you try, you can't do this. I guess the playing field is pretty even out as for now.
Another question that we've gotten, and slightly off topic, why didn't you pursue a professional career in snowboarding? This is when we made the event live, we started getting questions. So we'll take a few of those now also. So
Yeah,
why didn't you pursue a professional career?
I had no talent. I wasn't good at it. My adventure with snowboarding was that I was living in the north of Poland, by the sea, and I always loved mountains. And I was one of the first guys that would do skateboarding. And when the local travel agency was started to do trips to the mountains, they figured if I'm good at skateboarding, I will be good at snowboarding. And because I was older, I was 17, I would be able to take care of other kids that want to snowboard as well. And that's how I was able to travel for 1 month every year to the mountains and basically do it for free, as long as I would take care of some smaller kids every hours every day. And then in order to make money also on this, that's how I was making my extra money. I made all those necessary certificates. But in order to be an extreme sports extreme sports guy, no, that was never my thing. I wasn't good enough.
Great. Okay, so Mahim Zahra wants to know, what is the first success in your business?
First success in my business? I guess the first transaction we've done. Yeah.
So what would you consider the first success in your business? Was it the first customer you landed, the first, like you said, the first transaction perhaps? What was it?
I mean, what really made me believe in myself was in that financial business. My first transaction that I've made, and I remember this till today. And I sold an investment product to a person that wanted to invest something. And that one deal, that one contract, I made more money than my parents in a month altogether. And that's how I was like, oh shit, I think I'm in a good sector now. I think I'm good at it. That really gave me belief that I can do a lot of stuff. And that's the symbolic moment of me getting out of this bullied kid mindset into, okay, confidence is helping you. So let's see how what else I can do if I apply this in other areas of life.
Okay, and then a slightly opposite one to this. What has been the lowest point in your entrepreneurial career where you just wanted to give up and go back to a job?
Yeah, so the lowest point was the damage on my reputation that has been done because of that Interpol case. Like I told you, when I went through this situation in the jail, those 4 stages of grievances, I was able to internalize this and prepare myself. But then when people started writing on social media, oh, I am now the fraud, and I could see this being written by people that I knew, that's when you realize that people who pretended they are friends are now just really showing the real face, that they were always hoping for me to be not successful. That's when I was accused of, being this white privileged guy. I was accused of being a white savior, of having this mindset that I'm a racist and I'm building businesses to take advantage of Africa and so on. I was called a colonizer. That was really painful because you realize that you can't fight with those arguments with facts, because those people don't care about what the situation, what the facts really are. They already have a predefined emotional attitude towards what happened, and they don't care about the facts. So you kind of realize that this is a lost game. So I figured, if I'm not wanted here, if people treat me the way I'm treating you, although everything I've been going through, then what's the point? Why should I even try? Why shouldn't I just move to another region? That was very depressing. And I didn't maybe think of going to another job because I don't see myself working for someone, but definitely moving my investments to another region.
Any plans of investing in the Asian market as the e-commerce business is picking up pace, especially in Pakistan?
Yeah, I don't see myself as now changing totally my focus into Asia, because there's just so much happening in Africa. But I did make some decisions lately of not being only focused on Africa as a region. My biggest focus as a number 2 is also renewable energies, and those businesses. I've invested in a company in that area, and they are going global now. And definitely Pakistan and India and Middle East is a region where we're gonna enter. But I just don't see myself as being focused only on Asia because the world is just too big and I've already done too much in other areas. And it doesn't make sense for me to stop whatever I'm doing and just changing everything.
We'll just take last 2-3 more questions. So 3 advices you would want to give entrepreneurs currently going through a rough time.
Can you repeat the question?
3 advices you would give to entrepreneurs currently going through a rough time.
So that's not my advice, but you can find it on YouTube. It's a quote from Will Smith. I think he was winning a Grammy or an Oscar, and it's just Google on YouTube, Will Smith running and reading. And he says that you should always read a lot and run a lot, because reading is about reading someone else's problems. You're not that special. Most of the problems you're facing, someone else already had, and there's a high chance they wrote a book about it. So you can learn from someone else's mistakes. And then he also said just reading and working out, especially running longer distances, because at some point your mind is telling you shouldn't run that well. You're already tired. Just slow down, go home, eat a shake, eat the ice cream. And to be able to run a marathon, to be able to run far distances, it's really all about fighting with your brain. And if you know how to run longer, then it's the same mechanism how to overcome demotivation in business.
Okay, so why did you go from Europe to Africa for setting up your own company?
Yeah, so I've already explained. I realized that I'm this average Polish entrepreneur that never worked for any international business and never really finished university. So my chances of becoming successful were really low. So I figured I want to work for an international company first to learn something, leave them, and then open another company already with all that additional knowledge and expertise. And just by pure accident, Rocket Internet was looking for some guys to join the team to launch Nigerian businesses. And that was just a 3-year contract to earn shares instead of a proper salary. I agreed for a smaller salary and shares. So that's how I earned my way to become a shareholder. And then again, just by pure coincidence, I actually fell in love with Africa. if back then they told me we are opening an office in Pakistan, I might have as well ended in Pakistan. But it was Nigeria for me. And that's how coincidence really defines the rest of your life.
Perfect. Thank you very much. There is one last question. And this question, oh yeah, so we dismissed this because there were lots of typos in this one, so we didn't really understand how student can establish our business ideas in Pakistan instead of European country. I don't know. I don't think we can. Marek, would you want to answer this one?
I really don't know much about your local and environment. I think what I did notice, however, is that I have a lot of young people always coming me with those questions, and my answer is why do you rush so much? If I look at my life, I wouldn't change many things, but I would definitely change one thing. I wouldn't drop out of university that soon, and I wouldn't enter business that soon. And let me tell you why. When you study at a university, you will have a big chance to build long-term relationships with a lot of people. If you have 10 friends at the university, there's a high chance that after 10 years, some of them will be successful. And if you're still in relationship with them, the networking with them will help you become successful as well, because you know how it is in business. You need to know people. I remember when I was a young kid, I always had this problem. I don't know anyone successful. Now I do, just because people my age that I remember from high school, primary school, college, a little bit, that 1 year, they are just by statistics, some of them are successful. So you want to build that networking. Then I know that if I worked for someone first, if I worked for a bigger company first, for 2 years, I would make 80% of my most stupid mistakes that I made in my life in business, and I wouldn't be the one to pay for them, just the company that hired me. And many people are afraid of their ideas being stolen or someone else spotting this opportunity and they will build this business before them. If you believe that you have what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur, Doesn't matter if you're going to start today or in 5 years from now, you will still make it, because you will never run out of ideas. And also many people told me, well, I don't really I can't find a job. I can't find an internship to start. This is why I have to go to business. And from my expertise, from my experience from Poland and then other countries, opening a successful business is harder than finding a job. So if you can't find a job, then maybe your chance of also becoming successful in business are much lower. I'm not talking here about exceptions from the rule, because you might be that one guy in a million. I'm talking here about the probability and improving your chances, not hoping that you're one in a million.
Great. Wasim, in answer to your question, he's already answered it. The reason he wrote his book was he wanted to speak about his journey and tell people about his entrepreneurial journey. The last question for the day is from Jamil. What specific business courses would you recommend for starter business owners? Do you think an MBA holds any value post-COVID? And that's it. And then we'll be done with the Q&A. Thank you very much, guys.
About the MBA question, I will reply with a joke that there are two CEOs asking themselves if they have a MBA, and the one CEO answers that I don't have an MBA, my assistant has one. No, it's absolutely invaluable now for the business from the knowledge perspective. But if you really have that $100,000, you're going to meet a lot of cool people. And the MBA right now is all about building networking. A couple of my friends finished MBA, and they all say it's not about knowledge, it's about the people you meet. So maybe if you have that money and you don't have enough powerful friends, you should do an MBA. But in terms of knowledge, no. Books, business books. There's so much amazing knowledge available almost for free nowadays. People really don't appreciate it.
Perfect. Thank you very much. With that, we'll conclude the session. Thank you, Marek, for joining us. It was great having you over, and it was a very interactive session. A lot of people would be asking for your slides. So, if it's okay with you, we'll be posting a few pictures of the slides. Sure. If that's all right. Sure. Okay. And the link to this, guys, the recording would be up on our YouTube channel. Marek, I will send you a link as well. But for everyone else who wanted to know, yes, the session has been recorded, and the link will go up on our YouTube channel for the National Incubation Center. So thank you very much, Marek. Hope you had a good time also. It was fantastic having you on board. And hopefully we can engage you for further sessions in the future as well.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining, and all the best to you guys. Hope to see you around somewhere in the world.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hopefully, yes. Bye-bye.